Well, I just want you to know that I'm here to try and make Article 1 project fun. This could be such a process that is incredibly, how would people say? It's not as sexy to people, but we're here to bring sexy back into Article 1. I want you to know that I look up to Natalie. She is a good friend of mine, and when I asked her when I was running for this position and I asked for her help on getting some knowledge, she really got me versed on the ins and outs of the EPA and how that works with our state legislature and how that works on a federal level. And I have to tell you, she has been very helpful whenever I've needed some help or knowledge on specific things. We've got some great hardworking, very smart people here in the state of Utah, and I have to tell you, I am so proud to be from this state. This is one of, I believe, the greatest place in the United States to live. So I'm biased, but that's okay. There are two questions that I'm asked frequently about Congress. The first question is, what are the differences between the local level and the national level of governing? And the second is, what's been the most surprising thing to you since you've been in office? So the answer to the first one is, on a local level, we get things done a lot quicker. In other words, if I go into a Walmart, you can't, I'm always met with constituents there. They always have pictures, and before I leave, I know where every single pothole in that city is. The other thing is not one issue. In the 10 years that I've been in local government, not one issue was a Republican-Democrat issue, because we were driving over those same potholes. Our kids are going to the same schools. When you are making decisions at a local level, they become people issues, and you want to make sure that you're taking care of your people. They're all of our issues, so it's not separated by parties, which is why I love local government so much. I was able to ask myself several questions before putting any legislation into law. Is it affordable? Is it sustainable? Is it my job? In other words, can we afford to build that road? How much is it going to cost for us to maintain it? Can we maintain that road? And is it our job? So I'd always have to ask myself all of these questions before making any new laws. And I have to tell you, unlike Washington, all of our bills were one subject. We dealt with it one at a time, and people were part of that process. Every time we would see that room filled with people, I knew that we were going to come out with better decisions because the constituents were involved. They were literally affecting and molding the decisions that we made. And so those are the things that are different in Washington, and I think that this is why this project is so incredibly important. The answer to the second question, what has been most surprising to you, is, for me, I knew that there was these regulatory agencies out there, but I didn't realize how incredibly powerful they are. I call it a fourth branch of government that wasn't supposed to exist. They don't answer to anyone. They're not elected by us. If we don't like what they're doing, it's very difficult to reverse what they're doing. Let me give you an example. I'm part of the 114th Congress. So far, Congress in the House has passed 580 bills out of the House. 100 of them have gone through the Senate and were put into law, were written into law by this president. The regulatory agencies have written 3,378 rules and laws. And what I mean by written, they don't have to be passed by Congress. They write it, it becomes law, and you have to follow it. And just this last year alone. So think about that. 580 passed through the House, through your representatives. 100 became law. But we are following 3,378 laws that were written by people that we are not accountable to. That's astounding. You're creating an environment where government's not working for you, but you're literally working for government. When you've got the director of HUD, for instance, that says, you know what, I'm going to diversify America. You have to be really careful, because a lot of times what that means is going into our cities, Utah cities, and changing zoning laws and telling our cities how to zone, which gets that decision making away from you. In other words, when you go into your city council meetings and you're talking about zoning laws, It's absolutely, it would be tragic if they say, I'm sorry, I can't do this because federal law says we can't do it this way. And that completely undermines our ability to take care of the people in our communities. Is that alarming? A little bit. I'm seeing some concerned faces. That's okay, there's hope. There's hope. Which is why here's what this environment has created. It's created an environment where really nothing can get done very quickly. No one's asking, is it affordable, is it sustainable, is it our job? Washington is wrongfully legislating from a fiscal cliff every year at the 11th hour with no transparency and no input from the American people. I take issue with that. Understand that my parents immigrated from Haiti. They came from a country where they were dealing with one dictator after another. This is a person who believed that they are the executive, judicial, and legislative branch all at once. And trust me, that is not the type of paradise we want to create here. They left Haiti because of that. We certainly don't want to create that environment here, which is why this project is so incredibly important to me. I probably have answered two of your questions in this and why we need to change the way Washington works, because Washington, frankly, isn't working. It's certainly not working for you. If we can effectively restore Article 1 back into our legislative process, several things will happen. One, we would have made the executive branch limited to Article 2. We would have created that separation of powers that is there for a reason, that balances each other out. Two, members of Congress will be held accountable again for the votes that they take and the legislation that they create. And three, people will have the ability to effectively change legislation, not be subject to the political environment no matter who the president is. That is the most important thing to me, because this is something that is supposed to be, and I hope, is bipartisan legislation. That at the end of the day, no matter who is sitting in that White House, you do not lose your ability to be part of that legislative process. You're not losing your ability to make decisions in your community, in your homes, and in your states, and certainly in the country that you live in. Because after all, this is what made this country great. People being able to stand up and change a law. People being able to stand up and say, I disagree with that. I hope that I still live in a country where we can go back and say, you know, this hasn't been working. Let's relitigate that. Let's think about that again. There was a point in time, and I will bring this up because it's not in my notes, just to let you know. There was a point in time where in this country we thought that it was okay for people to be property. That was okay by law. And because people have been able to stand up and say, this is wrong, we've been able to change that process because people felt like this was not the way that we wanted government to run. We were able to stand up, change that process. I wouldn't be here today if we weren't that type of America. We want to make sure we restore that. So the answer to the last question, which is probably the most difficult question, is can we successfully, with any of the presidents that are running, be able to land their support in this movement? That would require them giving up a lot of power. That would require them being limited to Article 2. And my answer to that is, I certainly hope so. Because if we have a presidential candidate that is willing to restore power back to its people, then I believe that we will restore what is great about this country again. So I'm looking forward to your questions, and I'm looking forward to working on this project. And thank you so much for coming and showing up.